Today we're going to be reacting to a story about a girl who was offered $20,000 from her doctor to test something for him.
I was on my way to drop out of college when I got a text from a girl named Joanna in my psychology class. She said there was a new lab in town offering $20,000 to people to volunteer for some medical experiment.
I mean, it's such a large amount of money, and being in college, I don't see most people saying no to this. I feel like I would even say yes now.
I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You see, I didn't want to drop out of college. I just couldn't afford it. I'd flunked a few tests and my parents had stopped paying for my tuition fees.
You could just take out $100,000 in loans like the rest of us. Come on, that's what I did.
Because they were so disappointed in me. Well, I'd show them and get my cash dollar. I messaged Joanna back and asked her where I could sign up. She said she was driving over there now and would pick me up. Wow, this was too good to be true.
It does sound nice. You're chilling in school, ready to drop out, and like that, $20,000 to sell your body to science. I don't know. Are you guys doing it? I don't know.
When we pulled up at the address, I was a bit confused. It didn't even look like a hospital or anything.
Well, that's because you're at a haunted house. I think you went to the wrong address.
In fact, it looked a bit creepy.
Yeah.
We walked towards the entrance, and I seriously felt like we were about to be murdered or something.
I think you are. I think what happened is I think you're being kidnapped, potentially. I think that's what's happening. You fell for a scam, maybe?
The door slid open, and inside, everything was white. It was so bright, I actually pulled my shades down.
I mean, think about that. Do you just get a text on your phone for $20K and think it's real? Because I immediately would block the number. Now I'm getting suspicious. These are some dumb people. No wonder y'all failed out.
There was no one around, so I said, "Hello?"
Okay, that's suspicious. Just one couch?
And suddenly, a man in a lab coat appeared from behind a glass.
Nah, if a dude like that came out behind a glass mirror and he looked like this specifically, I would just start screaming. I don't know what I mean, something about that is unhuman looking.
I told him we were here for the experiment, and he handed us a bunch of forms to fill out, and
Yikes.
said he'd be back in 10 minutes. I gulped. Was I actually doing this? But then a woman came out from another door, and she looked right at me and said,
Well, you can see the problem here. Her pupils are missing, so whatever happens in there probably is gonna be not good. Could be an Elon Musk experiment, the brain chip maybe.
"This is the best thing you'll ever do." Well, that was settled then. I filled out the form, which was...
Okay, well, that's all it takes, folks. That's all it takes.
I told him she'd left her bag, and he grabbed it and said, "Come on then, are you doing this or not?"
Nah, look at that neck. Look at that chin. Look at what's going on right there. You see that? It's the uneven beard. You know what I mean? It's the little eye things, the little eye droopy droops, the big old fat round nose, something about his mouth, the giant goblin ears, the haircut that hasn't been taken care of. He's a creepy man.
I reminded myself of the money and followed him. Then I realized there was glass everywhere, but I couldn't see anything.
She's being watched by all the corners.
I asked the man about it, and he said it was only glass on one side. The medical professionals inside could see me, but I couldn't see them. I wondered which room Joanna was in. As we turned a corner, I heard what sounded like her voice.
Screaming.
And it sounded like she was panicking.
Yeah.
My whole gut was screaming, no, and yet I kept following the man. He told me just to ignore the sounds.
Just ignore that screaming. Nothing to be seen here. Those are just one-way mirrors when thousands of people are staring at you. It just gets weirder and weirder as this goes on, doesn't it? My mouse has been there the whole time. I'm
The
sorry.
lab technician had hurt her hand that morning and was in a lot of pain.
Oh.
Something wasn't right about this.
Yeah, no kidding.
But then he took me into a room, and it was filled with sofas and beanbags and soft music, and I instantly
And giant mirrors. She's being watched by people.
felt relaxed. He asked me to take a seat and then offered me tea, and I thought to myself, okay, this isn't so bad. "So what is this experiment exactly?" I asked and sipped my tea.
It's probably an experiment to see if college people are willing to do anything for $20,000, including risk their lives on a creepy hallway.
And the man laughed and said it was harmless, just an experiment to test my memory. He said they were conducting a study on how to store memories, so that when people got Alzheimer's, they could implant these memories back into their head. Whoa, I thought. My grandma should have done this then.
That sounds a little bit like an Elon Musk thing, if you ask me. A little memory storage. I mean, that's got some Elon Musk tricks to
She
it.
actually did have Alzheimer's. Surely I was too young for this, I said to him, but he replied with, "The younger, the better." Then he asked me to follow him again.
That's a weird thing to say, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of odd. The younger, the better. Okay.
The next room had lots of machines and wires, and it felt like a hospital. I took a seat, and he started attaching wires to my head. He said he would ask me a series of questions, and the wires would record my brainwaves along with the memories.
Bro, even my cat's freaked out by what's happening now.
Then, the next time I came to the lab, they'd test my memory again to see if anything changed. Hang on, next time? I told him I thought this was a one-off thing, and he just smiled and said, "For $20,000, you need to come twice. Didn't you read the small print?"
For $20,000, you need to come twice. That's still fine. I mean, I thought he was gonna say for like the next 10 years. Twice for $20,000, that's $10,000 a trip. And it doesn't seem like you're being injured, so it doesn't seem like a bad idea.
Then he hooked me up to the machine, and I won't lie, it hurt.
Oh.
I felt like my brain was being squashed.
All right, never mind. Take back everything I said. This is not good.
The first question he asked me was, "What was the saddest thing to ever happen to you?" And I described to him in detail when my little sister was in a car crash, and how she had died, and how
Your little sister was murdered by somebody driving a freaking clapped out, slammed Camaro?
our family hadn't been the same ever since. Then he asked me about the happiest moment of my life, and I honestly didn't know. I couldn't think of anything. And then I decided it was probably the day Damien asked me to be his girlfriend last year. The questions—
So he's getting a baseline for her emotions, and I don't know if he's gonna mention this, but I'm gonna mention it because someone needs to. Her knees are a giant butt.
all kinds of random questions. And then after a while, I really started feeling sick.
Yeah.
My head felt fuzzy, and I couldn't remember anything. I must have fallen asleep because
No, he's brainwashing. No, he's extracting your memories and taking them out or something, maybe.
I woke up on the sofa in the nice room,
If her pupils disappear, which I don't know if she ever had any in the first place, we know something's going on.
and the man was standing there telling me I could go home now, and that I should come back in 1 month for the second part of the experiment. And what about the money? I asked him. He said they'd deposit the first half into my account before the end of the week. The first thing I did when I got out of there was to try and call Joanna, but she wasn't answering, and her car wasn't there anymore.
Well, it seems like she remembers most things, but now I'm curious, how long has she been in there?
I couldn't believe she'd just leave me there alone.
That is weird.
I only made it about 50 meters before I had to stop. Suddenly, I didn't even
Her eyes! She got the eye glowing thing.
know where I was going. I grabbed onto a nearby wall and slid down onto the ground, clutching my head.
Uh-oh.
I took a headache tablet and hoped the pain would go away, but it kept getting worse.
Yep. That's why you don't take $20,000 tests that you randomly get texted when you're sitting in class, because you might, whatever's happening to her might happen to you.
Somehow, I made it home.
Oh, okay.
That night, I fell asleep really early, and the next day, I woke up to some missed calls from Joanna.
Interesting.
When I got to college later that morning, I saw her in the courtyard chatting to Damien. I hadn't even known she had a boyfriend. She was flirting with him, and I marched right up to her and asked why she'd just left me yesterday.
I bet she's been in a coma.
She said she hadn't been feeling well, so she rushed home.
Ben, they keep really tricking me.
Then she gave Damien a hug goodbye and asked if we could talk. I didn't want to talk to her. I felt like hitting her, but I wanted to know if she'd received the money yet.
Okay.
She said she hadn't, but that it would come soon. Then she said she'd been feeling kind of emotional since yesterday. I told her I just felt sick, and then suddenly she was crying. She said she missed her sister so much.
So one girl is getting sick, one girl is having repressed memories bubble to the surface. Whatever sort of stimulation this guy put into their brains with the electric mechanical stuff in there, whatever that was, it's causing damage.
Just really sad without her in it. I felt bad for her. I couldn't imagine losing a sister. I mean, I was an only child, so I didn't even know what it felt like.
Yeah.
But then I got a message from my mom asking if I could pick up flowers on the way home for Amy's grave, and I had no idea who Amy was.
Oh, that's weird. Are their memories switching or am I confused?
Fuzzy.
I thought she had the dead sister. Maybe I'm confused. Now they're confusing me. What if this video is like brainwashing us? What if we are being test subjects by clicking on this video? Like, what's up with the weird blurry lines in the background? Is that hypnotizing us? The clock?
If I didn't pay my tuition before the end of the month, I'd be kicked out of college. That day, I passed out in class.
Oh.
Luckily, it was in
Well, good thing you need to stay in school so you can keep passing out in class. Isn't this how it started almost?
psychology, so Joanna was there too. She was the one who brought me water, and when I'd woken up, she said she was worried about the experiment and that we should go back and tell them how we were feeling. We drove over there and everything looked the same as yesterday, except this time the doors didn't open when we pressed the button. We sat and waited for a while, and eventually a guy came out a side door smoking a cigarette. He was on his phone, so while he was distracted, we slipped.
They just snuck right back in, and this is where they're gonna find out what actually happened in there.
Oh my gosh, it was like a glass maze in there. I was freaked out knowing
Yeah,
that
because people are probably watching you.
they could see us. And then I heard voices. Listen, man, I don't know what happened. The memories aren't on the database. I messed up, man. And then I heard, oh crap, look who it is. And then the same man from the day before came
Uh-oh, he's an angry man now. Now he's even scarier.
through a door and asked what we wanted.
How do you just keep calling through the windows? Like he's always watching?
I told him I'd passed out and been having extreme headaches and said that I thought it was his fault. Then I demanded my money. He asked how we'd gotten inside and said we were trespassing and that he'd call the police if we didn't leave immediately. I was shocked. I told him we would call the police if he didn't pay us the money he owed us.
Oh, there you go. The old switcheroo right there. Okay. I don't know that you're going to win that battle because I feel like if they're doing some sort of secret research for your brain, this is CIA funded all over it. This guy's a CIA agent. He's a Fed. 100%. Y'all are not going to win this battle, girls. Time to leave.
I was really starting to regret this stupid experiment. Joanna and I left
Oh, yeah, they actually did leave. Wow.
and said if we didn't get the money by the end of the week, we'd go to the police for reals. But then
For reals.
things just started getting worse. The headaches were unbearable, and I went home without the flowers.
It is weird, though, that he doesn't seem concerned about the side effects. He doesn't seem worried about that at all. He just said, leave, come back in a month. I wonder if their brains are getting wiped.
My mom was super mad at me. We got in the car, and she said it was not okay for me to just forget about my sister like this.
Oh.
I didn't understand.
Oh, she actually forgot her sister. Oh, I bet her best and worst memory that she told were the two memories that he took away from her.
I asked Mom if she was feeling all right, and said this was kind of weird because I'd never had a sister, and then she just lost it. She told me I was acting like a selfish brat. And then she told me to get out of the car and that she'd go to the graveyard alone and pick
Wow.
up some tulips herself. I got out and the headaches came back.
The headaches hurt because your memories were taken out. I bet you this is possible. I bet this is possible today.
She said she was in the graveyard, and so I walked over there. Then I saw my mom driving by. She wound down the window and said she'd see me at home, then drove off.
Aw.
I wandered into the graveyard and saw Joanna sitting next to a grave.
The grave was your sister's grave, but the memories got swapped.
Some beautiful tulips
Has
there,
to be,
just
or
like
something.
the ones my mom always had
I'm
at
still
home.
confused.
And then Joanna said this was her sister's grave. I looked at the name and said to her, "But that's not your surname, that's my surname." And she said it had.
I mean, either this is totally unintended, or why is the doctor not telling them their memories got swapped?
Then my phone rang and it was Damien. He said that Joanna had been messaging
And he probably does. Because she doesn't know Damien that well because Damien was her ex, but now the other girl thinks that was her ex. Now I get it.
him a lot,
Has to be,
acting
yeah.
like she was his girlfriend. I said that's because she was his girlfriend and hung up. This was all too much. And then I remembered my mom had said the name Amy that morning, and this grave said Amy, and the headache came back, and I thought I was going to fall over.
There it is. She gets it now, right?
I told Joanna I couldn't handle this. Something wasn't right. I told her I didn't want to talk anymore. I went home.
That's your solution? You just thought we're about to have a breakthrough. You just mentioned all the weird coincidences and then you just say, I don't want to talk anymore. That's not the right angle to go.
And the first thing my mom said was that she'd seen a sweet young girl going towards Amy's grave, but she didn't recognize her. And then I looked around the hall, and there were family photos of me, my mom, my dad,
Where's
and
your
another
dad
girl.
been this whole time?
Was this Amy? Why couldn't I remember her? And suddenly it came rushing back. The man in the lab coat saying they were storing memories,
Yes.
implanting them. What if they just implanted my memories into Joanna by accident?
Yes.
And then Joanna called, and she sounded hysterical, saying she'd never had a sister, that her mom was worried about her.
Yes, they finally get it. It only took me about 8 minutes, took them 9 minutes. That's really a long time.
Damien had called saying he was my boyfriend, not hers.
Wow.
And then I knew the medical experiment had gone seriously wrong. I called
Did it go wrong or is that with the intent?
the police. I told them the address of the lab and said I thought there were people operating illegally there. An hour later, the police turned up at my door, saying there had been a fire, that the lab I mentioned had burned down, and they couldn't find any information.
No, they had an emergency burn down. This has CIA written all over it, and now the girl's memories are permanently swapped.
I wanted to scream. What about my money? They'd completely tricked us. I told the policemen about the experiment, and they looked horrified and said there was no way this kind of thing was okay.
No, dude, there's not enough time left in this video for her to get the money.
Joanna and I both got taken to the police station and had to explain everything.
Uh-oh.
And it turns out she'd not been asked any questions about memories. She'd just been hooked up to a machine and said it had really hurt.
Oh, this is crazy. Secret memory transfer. I mean, it's really an interesting idea. I've got to assume this is taking place somewhere in the world, probably America, right now. Like, it has to be today.
And afterwards, her head had felt different. She still believed she had a sister called Amy who'd died. But then I explained that this was my memory, that they'd somehow implanted into her brain. It honestly feels like some kind of sci-fi horror story.
Wow, would you rather be the girl that gets a new memory or the girl that loses her memories? Which one would you be?
And yet, this is my reality.
That's
The
it?
police are still investigating, and I really hope they find those criminals soon. The worst part of it all isn't that I didn't get my money, it's that I can't remember my sister. I feel like they stole my memory and gave it to Joanna. It must be pretty bad for her though, because she has this fake memory in her brain and it tortures her. As for Damien,
Oh
he
my
was my
God.
boyfriend all along, and now that Joanna understands what happened, she's backed off. This is
She understands, but she has a memory that she's her boyfriend, which means she still loves your boyfriend, and she has the pain of knowing your sister. This just absolutely screwed over your friend. Like, you lost the painful memories and you keep your boyfriend. She gets nothing but pain. That is a crazy story with a really depressing ending. If you guys like this, make sure you tell me down below what I should react to next. Peace.